computer, but it's already live. And I think it's going to be funny because we get to see this. You just see me talking to myself as it's live. I'm going to share the screen and then get started. There we go. Share my screen. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our final event here in the Bay Area. Today we are at Brix 581 in Oakland, California. Very excited to be here. It is our last day in the Bay, and it's going to be great. We have special guests, we have friends, we have family, we have everybody who is part of our community and their community and their community. It became, these events started out as just a way to promote and share, and I think that they became something so much bigger. I'm happy to be part of it. I'm happy to be surrounded by such great people and readers and artists, and I'm looking forward to the future. But today we are in the Oakland area. We're going to make the most of it. It is our far, far away, but closer than ever virtual tour. And it really has become closer than ever because I am with my friends. I'm with new friends and who will continue to be my friends, even though we've never met. And we've never met in person, but I feel like they're super tall and they're also super short all at the same time. And it's wild and it's crazy, but I love it. Michael is back with us today. We're happy to have him. Pete filled in fantastically last week or on Thursday. Feels like it was a week ago. And that was very, I'm grateful to have him. I'm grateful to have Michael back with us. A little bit about Brix 581. While I was in Oakland, the same with the Stork Club, there are these owners and these friends of mine now who were there when we needed somewhere to go, when we needed to have a beer or just talk and, get things off of our chests and our shoulders and our minds. And that space became somewhere that we can go to without fault, without anything else, and without shame, and just talk. I think a lot of bartenders, a lot of restaurant owners, a lot of barber shops, they become places where we can go to and share and talk about things that maybe we can't speak about with our family or friends or our immediate communities, and they are our extended communities. They take care of us, and all of our local shops always take care of us, and it's time, we have to give back, show them that we love them, show them that we want them to stick around. And so Stephanie Sullivan of Brix 581, they're unable to be here, but they are working on a Venmo and other avenues to donate and to support. And so I have Stephanie's email address here, stephaniesullivan@gmail.com, Stephanie Sullivan, SULIVAN.com. Email them, ask her, hey, are you open? They are open, but get the hours, show up, donate, do what we can to save them, show them that we care, show them that they are always a part of who we are, who will be, and who we were. Remember to stay connected with Nervous Ghost Press to find out what's new, what's coming up, what's going on, where we're going, new projects, new ideas. Instagram at Nervous Ghost Press, Twitter, nervous_ghosts, Facebook, YouTube, and of course, www.nervousghostpress.com. Every event, we have a pre-event meeting just to kind of get all the nerves, shake them out, get our feet wet, whatever you want to call it. And we talk about life. We talk about our past, our futures, what we're working on. And it's really nice to see that so many of us come from different places, whether it's different countries, different states, cities, backgrounds, ethnicities, and identities and everything else. But we are all connected. And so stay connected with us. We are forever connected in the anthology, available at www.nervousghostpress.com. Every time you write in the Nervous Ghost Press journal, I feel it. It's not magic. I don't get to see it. It's not, it's not TV, but if it were, everything that comes in here shows up on mine. But I feel it. I know you're writing in there at home and at school or wherever you are at work, not working, but writing, not working, but dancing, not working, but painting and singing. We've all been there. And I just want to shout out to everybody who does write, who does create, who keeps us alive, who keeps the art alive, and shows that we have the ability to create beauty and positivity out of darkness, out of anger, out of shame and guilt, and that compassion is born from that pain. It's born from needing an outlet, needing something to take away whatever it is we're feeling. And that is art for me, and that is art for a lot of us. Whether it's putting a baseball size amount of acrylic paint in your hand and throwing it at a canvas, or dancing and doing I think a plie. I don't know if that's the word, or doing anything else. And these events have really illustrated the power of our community to come together. And so the Bay Area, of course, and we'll speak about this later on in our Q&A and discussion. So if you are watching, ask questions, show us your love, ask comments. And as always, I have my notes here, and I'll be asking questions and starting the discussion and trying not to talk too much, because it's about all of our speakers and I want to hear them. I don't want to hear myself. I think a lot of us also feel that way. We don't like to hear our own voices because in our brains it's different. I just say different. And if you would like to learn more about the press, check out the interview with Michael and I. And Pete was our great MC last on Thursday, the Chills at Will podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, and you can ask Alexa. Also, the SF Chronicles Datebook article is very, very well written and very informative. And it's about small presses in the Bay Area and how we're sticking together and working through the chaos in the world right now. Make sure you follow, subscribe, and everything else. I think everybody has to say it on YouTube. I don't know where it is. I've been watching a lot of videos and it's somewhere here or here, but I'll figure this out one day. And so I'd like to send it back to Michael now to introduce himself again, say a few words, and introduce our first speaker and get this whole event started. So Michael.
Hi, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are watching. I am Michael Nicholson. I'm the managing editor here at Nervous Ghost Press. I am, part of my job is managing the social media accounts. So if you ever get in a tussle with another page and you need some backup, I'm the person that you need to contact. That's one of our services. It's in the fine print. But I'm happy to be here. Matt and I attended Mills College in Oakland, California. That's where we met. That's where we had these creative juices flowing. He reached out to me a couple years after I graduated, after I got my MFA, and asked me to come on and join him with this project. It's been a year already, and we have a book out. We have all these wonderful faces here ready to speak, and we're streaming live on YouTube for any number of people around the world. So it's been productive, it's been successful, and I'm happy to be doing this. We have a great lineup today. We have some names that we haven't had before, some great guest speakers, and of course, some faces that you are familiar with. And everybody who has contributed has wonderful writing. Their work, it just seeps with creativity and emotion, and that's what our book is about. It's writing for life. It's writing for your own livelihoods, your own survival, and your own sanity, especially during these times. So we're gonna get to our first speaker, who has definitely spoken here before. They are Zoe Ellerby. Zoe is a 20-year-old going into her third year at Columbia College, Chicago, as a creative writing major. Since getting her first publication with Nervous Ghost Press, she has been published 4 more times by Mulberry Literary, The Francis Magazine, and Hair Trigger. She has been writing since 2nd grade and figured out how to use Microsoft Word on her mom's Windows computer. When it comes to creative writing, it is the one thing that helped her discover herself, along with the many different sides of humanity. She wrote her first novel in November of 2019 for National Novel Writing Month, titled A Bottle of Citrine, and has been working on several different works in progress since her college career began. She writes for people like her. She writes to represent what hasn't been seen enough in the world of literature, communities of people of color in America, the LGBTQ community, the disabled community, and those who suffer from mental health in these marginalized communities. Zoe is a force to be reckoned in the most polite way possible. Zoe, thanks for being here again.
I wasn't sure if I was supposed to unmute myself or you were going to do it, but hi, I'm back. It's been a long time. And I don't know if you guys saw, like, it was like the very first one. I was there, and I'm going to be reading the piece that I submitted to Nervous Ghost because it's really long and detailed, like me who just can't stop talking. So it's called Complexities in the Infrastructure. And the gist of this story is that this is an excerpt from my larger novel, which this story is the namesake of. So I'm going to be reading a pretty intense part. It's about this young teenager named Orion, or this young adult named Orion, who's Latino and he's gay, and he, trigger warning, he tries to commit suicide. So I'm getting to the part where he attempts. And if you have the book, this is page 13. I lifted myself up on the rail again, leaning over the edge, then putting my feet up. It stopped screeching when both feet were on its rusted surface. It would break at any second. It just didn't want to let me know. Everything that touches this house keeps a secret from me, so I keep secrets from it. I knew Mama and Dad would die. I watched it like a movie trailer that I refused to record in a journal my shitty therapist gave me. I went into their bedroom instead and stared at the sword above Dad's bed frame. Dad said it was better than a gun. I'm too short to reach it. Skittles keeps the medicine cabinet locked up after a close call with Raina and his sleeping pills. I think about Dad's sword a lot and what kind of monstrosities he could have fought with it. Were they worse than the ones in my dreams? Or were they the manifestation of true horror? What did he think when he was dying? Did he wish that he had it? Or did he think about Mama? I heard the railing screech again, the high-pitched industrial sound that means you really need to do some renovation. If it broke, that would be a lot of money, since we rent this place. Skittles already works 2 jobs. Rocky works part-time at the auto shop, but Skittles doesn't want him to drop out like he did just so he could work. Skittles didn't want to play parent. He didn't want to take care of us. Neither did X, but he made it obvious. I leaned forward, my toes pointing towards the cement, my heels slowly lifting off the railing as the fall breeze kissed my face. I imagined it was Mama welcoming me to the sanctuary Dad told us stories about. We're different, mijo. I know your dreams are scary, but you were born a warrior. We all are. Our family is dedicated to this sanctuary. What's the sanctuary, Poppy? It's where your abuela went, it's where her tío went, and it's our heaven, mijo. The dreams couldn't follow me in death. Carmen couldn't hurt me with her words when I wasn't there to hear them. I'd see Mama and Dad again. We dance in a mystic meadow above the clouds. I let myself fall forward, the breeze getting sharper as I sped towards the cement. But I immediately felt the wind get yanked out of me. The collar of my shirt choked me, and I wondered if that would be better than crashing into concrete. I opened my eyes and saw the ground, still far below. My breath was tight and cornered, my body struggling to get enough air in my lungs. It was either out of fear, shock, or disappointment. I glanced up and saw Skittles gripping my arm with both hands. What are you doing? Resentment started to fill my chest. He took a few steps back, his sneakers scraping against the concrete balcony. I'm not letting you fall. I wanted to bite his hand so he would let me go. It would be better for him, but he pulled me up with a painful yelp, using his left arm to pull me back into the building. He gripped his right arm, slouched over, cinnamon skin and faded blue hair turning pale. I sat on the balcony, scooting into a corner. I broke his arm. Oreo, he gasped. What? Gas. I'm sorry. I knew it was going to happen next. You. He had so much more to say, but the pain was taking most of his energy. Inside. I stood slow, dragging my feet into the house, Dad's sword staring at me. I knew what was going to happen next, and I didn't want it. He would be reassuring me that everything was going to be okay when it wasn't. I wanted to die, and that was it. It would make his life so much easier. I wouldn't be in this much pain, and neither would he. But quietly, I knew he'd blame himself. Everyone would blame everything else besides me. He leaned against the wall where we still had a landline, sliding down before elbowing it with his good arm so the phone would fall into his reach. I heard beep, boop, boop, 911. What's your emergency? His breath was heavy. I just caught my brother trying to commit suicide. I'm sorry, I muttered. I'm sorry. My ears were clogged up with my fear, staring at my older brother who just wanted to help me, protect me, but he got fucked up in the process. This is why, Shane. This is why I can't stay. Hey, hey. He crawled towards me as best he could, his coffee eyes tired but sweet. I scrambled backwards like a scared puppy. No, lo siento, hermano. No hay bronca. He tried to reach for me again. It will be okay. He sat that same distance away from me until we heard sirens. I didn't know what he was going to tell the twins or X. I didn't want to know. He rested his arm on his leg, taking slow inhales as he quietly muttered to the sky. He was talking to Mama and Dad. I knew it. I didn't want to know what he was saying, and I didn't want to know what they would be thinking right now. The paramedics put us in separate gurneys, closing the back of the ambulance gently, like it was going to hurt us too. I hugged myself, not wanting to look my older brother in the eye, but my eyes were stuck. It was his fault that he looked like that. It was my fault that he looked like that. It was my fault that he wasn't going to be able to do his favorite things. He wasn't going to drum. He wasn't going to fake wrestle with our sister. He wasn't going to play Wii tennis. It was all because of me. I wanted to tell him that's why he should have let me go. Oh yeah, he didn't look at me. Stop thinking. I'm fine. And then you'll have to buy the book to read the rest.
Thank you. Thank you, Zoe. Michael got kicked out of Zoom, which is kind of hilarious. I feel like I may have done that in secret just as a prank, but I didn't. I could have, maybe next time. But it's something, that I think I say a few times, and with all of us, is we're here, we're learning, and we're going as the world turns together. And so he got kicked out, but we're still kicking, and we'll be all right. So Zoe, thank you. When I read your story, and there were the sibling aspect of it is something that I latched onto. And I know many of us have siblings, many of us don't. Many of us have friends who are siblings, and siblings who may, be better off as friends. And I think it all kind of goes in and out and together. And so everybody watching, you should pick up a copy, read them all, because there's nothing better than reading something on paper and then shoving it in your brother's face. For whatever reason, it just feels so fulfilling and fantastic. And so our first guest speaker this evening is someone that I know up in Oakland. And so I reached out to them because today is the last day in Oakland. I wanted them to join us. We hung out, and I graduated, I think, a year before he did. But we're still friends. We still communicate. And that friend group still remains friends. And that is the whole point of these events, is to show that this community is not just, a text messaging community. Now we're face-to-face. We have adopted the online world as if it's always been there since we were born. And it's always going to be there afterwards. And unfortunately, everything that we record is eternal. And so the embarrassing stuff and the not embarrassing stuff. Dwayne Horton is a Black queer writer from Cleveland, Ohio, who currently resides in Oakland, California. He has been published in the Shaker Write and graduated with his MFA in 2019. He now works as an outreach representative for Academy of Art University in San Francisco. Dwayne has been called a visionary by his professors because he believes in writing the Black experience into the science fiction genre and fantasy genres. By doing so, he hopes to broaden the canon of representation with new visions of Black futurity. It's a hard word, I'll be honest. It is his promise that by writing through the lens of his identity, Black queer people will see themselves reflected on the page in the way he has not often seen in literature. And so, Dwayne, we're happy to have you. We're happy to hear your take on not necessarily poetry, but a whole other genre of writing, and they're all connected. And I'm excited to hear it. I'm sure everybody else is. And so, Dwayne, have fun, have at it.
All right, and I have to say it's amazing to be here with the family and to have this experience and share this experience with you guys. One reason why I'm excited to be here is because as a fantasy and as a sci-fi writer who is Black, who is queer, we don't always have an opportunity to kind of talk about our own experiences, what it's like to write our short stories, and what it's like to kind of engage with literature overall, I would say. And so I thought that I would kind of start off talking about my process with some books that I read and some things that really have nurtured me in my own process. One author, of course, that is near and dear to me is Toni Morrison. This is just one of the books she's written called Song of Solomon. But I think it's a really good example of how authors like her, authors like Tiani Reeve-Dew, who wrote My Soul to Keep, which I'm a really big fan of too, take these really ordinary moments and infuse them with this kind of magical aspect to them. I'm kind of brought to, and this is a spoiler alert, hopefully everyone has read Song of Solomon, but if you haven't yet, just mute for now and then come back when I'm done with it, talking about that section. But near the end of the book here, or near the end of the novel, one of her characters actually lets go of some metaphorical weight, I guess you could say, metaphorical in quotes, and is thusly kind of able to fly. And it's kind of left up into interpretation for the reader. But it's that kind of like ordinariness that I kind of want to dig into deeper as a fantasy and as a sci-fi writer, and kind of look in to what's actually happening in the world right now, and how we can kind of use metaphor in order to come to grips about it in a different way. So a lot of just even the novel that I'm working on right now is or does feature queer Black men. And the reason for that is because I want to kind of reach back to the youth of my own kind of intersection of identity, and just say, hey, like, we've seen these kinds of same things, like we've kind of maybe even been through that same kind of pain. And this right here is a story that uses metaphor in order to overcome that, but also hopefully becomes a blueprint as well, so that younger folks, and I guess I'm still kind of young too, but still have an opportunity to like kind of grasp onto that. And that's really like my mission, I would say, throughout my writing, is to make that more visible. So when I'm writing a fantasy story or a fable, I'm always centering that intersection and kind of focusing on that ordinariness that really has a possibility to be so much more extraordinary than we realize. Process-wise, I also use like a lot of posters and just kind of go like kind of arts and crafts on things. You may be able to see the back of my wall a little bit here, but it's literally like all ideas just written down, color coded in some aspect of way, just because I love colors, you know. And they're all just talking about the different aspects of the novel that I'm creating, or just some short story that I'm working on. And I think that that's a big part of making sure a story is tight, is to make sure that the aspects that you're quote unquote planting within the story are well fed, so that they become a beautifully intertwined tree by the end of the story as well. So it's a really vindicating, I would say, freeing process to be able to intertwine and braid, but also kind of talk about pain in a certain way as well. And I think that's also kind of the crux of it as well, is being vulnerable enough to find strength within that. So yeah, I guess that would be, before I start to ramble on, I think that would be what I would really like to share with you guys about my own writing process, and also a little bit about what it's like to write fantasy, taking that ordinary and making it extraordinary, and finding the fairies in real life, and the magical flames, and the super speed or the super strength that was always inside of us, after all.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So Dwayne, I'm gonna have questions for you later on. So keep your brain, get ready, because sometimes I ask kind of stupid questions. I'll be honest with it, but I'm excited to get your take on things. And Michael, I think Michael's back. He's on his phone, so that's really good. And Michael will introduce our next speaker, so you don't have to keep hearing me and seeing me on your screen. All right, Michael.
I am back. Apologies. Our next speaker is Micah Tasaka. Micah is a queer mixed Japanese poet and spoken word artist from the Inland Empire, California, currently residing in Fuki Prefecture, Japan, as an English teacher. Sorry if I totally butchered that. They received their undergraduate degree in creative writing from the University of California, Riverside. Their first full-length manuscript, Expansions, was released on Jami Publications in 2017, and you can read Micah's writing at www.micahtasaka.com. Micah?
Okay, hi. Hello. So I am actually no longer in Japan. I just came back last Saturday, so I'm here now. I'm in San Bernardino right now, but living in the Inland Empire. But yeah, thanks for having me. Matt is my cousin, so shout out to my cousin Matt. Yeah, so these are, I'm gonna read like 2 poems from the anthology and then just one other poem. So this one's called The Floor. And in losing flower petals, do not call me death. That is no longer my name. I am a whole other creature, licking lips and scaling cliffs, savoring grass blades through pause on full moon pauses. I am the shift of divinity back into power, the fingers of goddess skimming the surface of the water, on sun-kissed skin under rainbow skies, the highest of highs and the lowest valleys, each sinking spell, the night rise, the moon set, on loose-leafed surrender, saying again, I will learn you, study your mapping, explore the depths of your ocean floor. And then this one is a poem I wrote like a year ago, after I had lived in another country for a year and then came to California to visit for 2 weeks and just saw like how much I had changed from the people around me. And so like thinking about like the loose theme of this reading, I think, is like community as like place and location. And so like I'm thinking about like how does that change as you change as a person when like you take your home with you, but then like what happens when you come back to your home and it doesn't feel like home anymore. So this is called Upon Being Away from California for a Year and then Returning for 2 weeks. And there's 2 parts, so this is part 1. There are people I love whom I hadn't seen in a year, who embraced me with a depth that said a year is nothing but the distance between a blink and the next, and that time or oceans or barriers of language or culture or values were no space that could separate us. And then I began to feel home again, or rather trusted the quality of scaffolds built around my spine, made of words like I love you, or it's okay if you fly, or you are of here, or you are a prayer of a floating dandelion that learned to alchemize wind. And if you ever think of coming back, you can feel home again here within you and always. Part 2. In the time I was home, there were 2 massive car accidents right outside the street I grew up on. a wildfire on the hill across from my house, a lethal shooting outside my friend's apartment, another murder at a park in San Bernardino, and an arrest of the assistant superintendent of the San Bernardino County Unified School District for allegedly possessing and distributing child pornography. And then I was at a pool party where a balloon popped and everyone jumped, everyone but me. And then a friend talked about how the whole country is now suffering from PTSD. And then I said, I'm of here, and everyone jumped, everyone but me. And then this is the last. The last poem is called The Color Yellow, and it's in the book as well. Today, I woke from nightmares with my jaw still intact. I call it victory. The way familiar souls find their own, I call it sugar and blossoms. I hug the floor when the wind blows too hard, I call it living still. When my heart beats thousands of times today, I hugged my people, told them I am glad they are alive. I call it love and survival, the way we escape death every night, wake to a sun that licks our wounds, cradles our delicate neck muscles. I call it softness today when tears pour. I call it strength escaping. Thank them for shedding each droplet from clouds with all the force of a hailstorm. I call it wonder. I call it something far from extinction when we can bleed out entire bones and still stand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Micah. You have a very strong poetic voice, and the repetition in the last two pieces was actually very effective. I wrote down one line from the second piece. I quoted, "Year is nothing but the distance between a blink and the next." That is a very powerful line. And when the second piece, when you referenced home and the sense of being home and the sort of dissociation that you can sometimes get when you come back to your what you think is your home, but it feels different, really resonated with me. When I was in the Bay Area, I came back down to Southern California where I had lived for some time. And being at the family house, it was just a very weird experience. It didn't feel like mine. I almost questioned if I had even lived there. So yeah, that's some powerful work. So thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you, Micah. And I wrote down too, I want to say a few things before I introduce our next speaker. You said taking your home with you. And that is almost the perfect line that represents this entire event this week and the tour. And that I took my home with me to Oakland, and then I brought Oakland back home. And then my friends took Oakland to Michigan and took LA to Michigan because of me. And I brought Michigan here with me as well, and Chicago and Virginia and everywhere else. And so this idea of home and community, I think, is very powerful. And it reminds me of our past and what was our home, what is our home, and what will be our home. And our next speaker, I met them, back in the day before I was this Matt. I was this Matt, if you can see. Look at that. Check out the hair. Oh my goodness. And that's a Matt who was Matt, and now I'm a Matthew. So, it's kind of cool. But I met this guy, and in the very beginning, it was kind of like, hey, who are you? And, we were squaring each other up, and we were trying to figure each other out. And I think we did. And now it's someone I can call my friend, my brother, someone I can speak with if I need help, if I just want to complain. Because I think a lot of us, we just want to complain sometimes, and we'll have people who, they don't want to hear it. And whether or not he wants to hear it, he still does. And that's important to me to have that support figure, whether it's, an artist, a friend, a business partner, or anywhere in between. And so Buddy really became someone that I can trust and look forward to and look up to. And, whenever I came home, I had to go and say, what's up? And so it's something that's special to have them here and to have them always, text me and say, hey, keep it up. Because for a long time, this project was weighing on me, and I was stressed out if I could get it done and if I could finish in time, and with everything going on. And we did. And it's because of the support of people like Buddy. And so, Buddy, I'm happy you're here, and I'm looking forward to your work as always. And so let's give us something great.
Thanks. Now the pressure's on. Thanks, Matthew. I appreciate that it's really been cool to watch your growth from Matt with the Mohawk to Matthew, the writer. It's really an interesting growth, and it's been part of my growth too. Because yeah, I'm always listening to my friends. It's something I do. It's this thing I'm given, and I do it. So I'm going to read two pieces I've read with Nervous Ghost before, but I like these two pieces. They're both short. I found something pretty interesting the other day. When I write songs, I write ballads, and when I write poetry, I write with a lot more humor. There's less of the ballad in there, less of the heart-pulled emotion, but there's still emotion in these. There's still truth in these, and they're just written from more of a sarcastic tone. I still mean them, but they're meant to, at least they make me laugh. So first one is called The Sermon. The sermon was supposed to last, or so I was told, in a wry but non-committal tone, 20 minutes at the most. So the 70s feathered haircut on the 70-something pastor veered into 5 times that 20. Stuck in the front row, I thought, and forgive me, Father, for I'm about to sin. Fuck this shit. Amen. And this is from the book, Writing for Life. Matt gifted me the page 1 of page 13, the first poem. And this is a piece that Matthew chose, called Blue Rhino. Captured and relentless in his thoughts, the male rhino, gloriously blue for reasons unbeknownst to most or some, is caught between the primordial ooze, slung off and betwixt, thank you, son boy, a rock and a hard arm. He waits for his mate to return from grass grazing, sunbathing, venture to Aristotle's meadow, so that he may presently find out where she placed the fly swatter. That's it, guys. That's it today.
Thank you, buddy. Always a pleasure. And I'm going to kick it back to our wonderful, glorious MC Michael here to introduce the next speaker and get everything going and continuing. All right, Michael.
All right, our next speaker is Kamani Rose. Kamani has spent her time working on narratives and poetic works where she could see herself and her experiences represented. She's also working on building her art collective created for and by women of color. It's called Kamani Rose Creations. She describes her poetry as partly something for people to see themselves in so they can affirm the feeling that they aren't alone in their emotions and experiences, and partly a vehicle for the transformative growth that we seek. Kamani, I'm so happy to have you back. So.
Hi. Okay, I have 3 poems for y'all, so I will. This first poem is actually a poem that I got a prize for this year. So I got the Jeff Marks 2020 Memorial Poetry Prize for this poem. So it's really exciting. I see the little claps. Thank you, y'all. So it's called River, and we're going to start with this one. I went to the river and was told to pray, told to sink myself into the ocean's favorite runaway memory and breathe. Inhale the seawater and exhale the salt that remains. My grandmother's grandmother was the daughter of a water woman.
Mami Wata sueña que sus chicas recuerdan de donde venían. Soak our feet in the rich earth and step into the clay. Unde. Down our necks to harden and to make our skin soft copper again. Make our hands clean of the scars we cannot remember getting. Turn into grip and hold. Only here do I know where home is. Only here do I know the ways to put me back together after I am away and I forget that I was once a water baby too. After I handed the crossing guard a penny for my thoughts, $1 for what I had inside, we traded and I carried my ocean's memories. I carried her legacy, branded dreams, yet I was still not empty, still not free. Las diosas sublicaban oidas. Escuchar el río. Remember who you are and pray. Whew, okay, that's the first one. The second one I wrote maybe a year and a half ago, and it is going to be in Fog Lifter Press in the fall. And it doesn't have a name really, so it's just kind of the first line is the first name, and you'll kind of get the energy of it going through. Okay. Summer's belly swells with Black children, but never births. Teaches womb rot dance routine. Hemorrhages funeral pamphlets. Mamas over open caskets, morning sickness. Wails in backbending contractions. Brown baby body bag fingers found in concrete outlines. This country gave pigs chalk, tracing every meal. Bullet seasoned, 4-hour sun-glazed sweet. Summer's belly swells with Black children, but never births. Sun-kissed death body waits. Decays warm and tattoo needle fresh. Pain sweetens branches from which it hangs. Wonder what exactly the tree is thinking. What apology is owed her. Sun-kissed death body is worn on the airbrush t-shirts of gospel choirs. Worn by the box-braided balding blondes. Single file, waiting bleached for burned butt surgeries and rat lip injections, sold now with a foundation that is 6 shades too light for her skin. Auction block, spring summer collection in the nearest designer store. Summer's belly swells with Black children, never births, sliced open, invaded for playtime plundering, drained plasma, renamed winter on another's skin, be consumed by dry heat, swallowed with nails. Summer's belly swells with Black children, but never births. The next Black thing doing their style for them. Full-term fashion spat linguistic gentrified once it leaves Black lips. Summer's lips strip bullets, drool tear gas, handcuffed, suffocated. Growing bellies, feeding pigs. All right. Whew. That's the second one. And the last one I have for y'all, I marked off all my pages in this book so I can find them because there's so many things in here. And I always get distracted when I start to look through and try to find things that I want to read for these events. And I'm like, oh, let me read this. And I'm like, no, focus. You're trying to pick your set, relax. So I had to put sticky notes in here so I would remember where my stuff is. The last one is in our awesome book. It is on, oh my goodness, page 89, if you want to see. And it's called Black Girl. Black girl born, skin side down, browned. Full head of ancestor hair, black as the bottom of the ocean those tar babies came from. Black girl trilingual, porque nana necesitan ayuda con sus primos y steam the tamales y hervir el arroz con frijoles. And we gotta fry some catfish too. We got 2 hands for picking and cleaning greens. Black girl knows the white fence casserole her house is made of. The Sloppy Joe school district stole the menudo y peach cobbler from her Black girl mouth. Black girl tongue tastes like hot sauce and drips venom. Black girl born that way. Born skin side down and sizzling. The saute pan moved from stovetop to oven to plate to belly to ocean to belly to belly to belly. Black girl devoured. Black girl silky smooth blowout steps into the rain, humbled. Black girl curls come out to play, no matter the battle to subdue them. They know better than to let heat win. Water always comes to cool, and black girl curls spin to greet her. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Colin. It's a pleasure having you again. Really noticed sound in your work, and reading along with the last piece that you read, Black Girl, I can really see that working in your writing. I also love in Black Girl how, and I didn't do this when I was reading it initially, but how you use the title, and even though it's not in the first line, you just read it off that first line, and it's really effective. The second piece that you read, the line that you kept reading, "Summer's belly swells," that had some great sound too, and it really added to the piece. There's some really good repetition tonight, and thank you for adding to that. So I'm going to give it back to Matt now, and he's going to introduce the next speaker.
Thank you, Kimani, too. It's always a pleasure to have you, and the passion that you bring is, I don't know, it makes everything worth it, and the passion everyone brings makes all the stress worth it, and it reminds us that, you know, it's something positive these days. And our next speaker, our next guest speaker is an artist, a poet, a writer, a musician, without ever writing a single word on a page. And the reason I invited them is because of that. And, you know, I didn't tell them I was going to say that, so that kind of sucks for you, but I think it's also adds to the experience and adds to the fun. Kenya Shanice currently teaches preschool dance in Sacramento area high school color guard and is the artistic director of Florin High School's Masterpiece Dance Company. She aspires to explore the therapeutic elements of dance through dance/movement therapy while incorporating elements of dance as activism. And it's Kenya Shanice. However, it should be Kenya Shanice because you're very nice. And I'm excited to have you. I'm excited to hear a new perspective coming in from not necessarily a writer, but a dancer. And you're right with your legs and your arms. And I remember when I watched one of your performances, dances, and whatever you're supposed to call it, you can let me know. And I was sitting there and I was floored because I don't know what the hell was going on, but I liked it. And it was new to me because, you know, I do like musicals, but it wasn't a musical, it was a dance, right? And I'm sure there might be some kind of, you know, tension between musicals and dancing. I'm not sure, but I'm excited to have you here. And I think everybody can benefit from hearing your perspective. And so Kenya, please let us into your world.
Yeah, hi, thanks for having me on. I think we all speak the same language regardless of what our arts are, what we choose, however we choose to express ourselves. It's so great being in this virtual room with everyone who is so passionate about their art, whether you're a writer, whether you're a musician, whether you are a poet, you know, whatever it is, whether you paint, like you were saying earlier, we all come together and we all speak a similar language that can be understood by each other, but not necessarily understood by normal people, whatever that means. And just hearing some of the work, even just this evening, it's interesting for me. It's kind of like a chicken and the egg situation of art becoming a mirror to what's going on in society currently, or is it kind of influenced by what's going on in society currently? And I think it's both of those things. And the piece that you're talking about that I created for my thesis concert at Mills, for me was kind of a mirror to what was going on in society at that time in 2019. I just felt, you know, you swipe through Facebook or whatever your social media platform is, and 1 minute you see another Black man was shot, and then you scroll down Kim Kardashian's butt, and then you scroll down a little bit more and there's some cute puppies, and then you scroll down and it's another school shooting, and you go through all of these emotions while you're probably sitting on the toilet in the first thing in the morning scrolling on your phone, you know. So I try to, for my art personally, I try to create in a way that is accepted by people, but also, like you said, you're kind of like, what is going on? But then later you can really reflect, or even during you can really reflect and be like, oh no, this is what's going on. life is crazy right now. You know, out there in these streets, it's not okay what's going on. The fact that I can move from one emotion or even become numb to a certain type of thing because it continues to happen, which is something we see in the Black Lives Matter movement. It's happened so often, people become numb and they can't handle it anymore. And so they're kind of taken aback when reactions happen. And so I think as artists, it's a way to, our art is a way to express ourselves and express what's going on in society and to touch people and to let everyone know that they're not alone, because a lot of people in times like these feel alone, especially we're supposed to be quarantined and things like that right now with coronavirus running around. But we're allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and presenting our poems or our choreography or our music, whatever it is. That's all I've got for now. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Kenya. And I look forward to asking questions in the Q&A because I'm gonna call you and Dwayne out. I decided before we started to have super questions for you both because you're coming with different perspectives, and I always like different perspectives, whether you learn from it or you realize, you know what, I don't like it and I'm gonna go do my thing anyways. I think it's always beneficial to find that. And Michael will have the pleasure to introduce our final speaker. And this speaker, I'll say a few words before Michael can give him his proper introduction, but I'm happy that he's here with us. He's someone that I can also speak with and speak about, and, you know, not necessarily bro out with, but, you know, sometimes, and just, you know, send him a text here and there and just say, dude, I feel like shit. And have, you know, just have a response like, I feel like shit too, you know, and that, like what Kenya said, that loneliness and that numbness, we don't have to worry about it because we have people who can carry it with us, and we can come together and carry each other's pain and be alone together. And we can still be alone together. And I think there's power in that. So Michael, you can give him his proper intro, and after this person speaks, we'll have our Q&A. Very excited. I hope you have questions for each other, because you don't want to have me keep asking questions. It's gonna get people angry. But all right, Michael.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear this next reader because I haven't read his work yet. But Tongo Eisen-Martin is our next reader, and he is a movement worker and educator who is organized against mass incarceration and extrajudicial killing of Black people throughout the United States. He has taught in detention centers from New York's Rikers Island to California county jails, and he lives in San Francisco. Tongo, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank all of y'all. First, I must apologize to the souls of the house because I'm wearing the cheekbones of the mask only. Like a pill bottle whose name is yours, the name tag on the side of a factory of wrists. I mean, teeth of the mask now, back of the head of the mask now. A new phase of anti-anthropomorphism fending for real faces stuck with one of those cultures that believes I chose this family. I'm not creative, just the silliest of the revolutionaries. My blood drying on my only jacket, the police state psychic middlemen evangelizing for the creation of an unmasses and unmedgar, blood of a lamb less racialized or awesome prison sentence, good God. A right angle made between a point on a Louisiana plantation and a 5-year-old's rubber ball, 3 feet high and falling like a deportee plane to complete my interpretation of garden variety genocide. I'm small talk about loving your enemies a little more realistically, about paper tigers and also gold. I need my left hand back. Broke my neck on a piano key, found paradise in a fist fight. Maybe I should check into the Cuban line. Watching the universe's last metronome, some call Black Jacobins, they just wait. These religions will start resigning in a decade or two. Some colorfully, some transactionally. In a cotton Gothic society, class betrayal gonna glass this. I mean, ironically, my window started fogging over too as I was trying to figure out which Haiti would get me through the winter, which poem houses souls, which socialist breakthroughs like, you know, taking 10 steps back, then finally trying stillness, or introducing Gabriel Prosser to Thelonious Monk. I mean, I remember childhood. Remember the word childhood being a beginning. Scribbling on an amazing grace, I rented this body from some circumference of slavery. Remember being kicked out the Midwest, strange fruit theater, lithium and circuses, like-minded stomachs, the ruling class blessing their blank checks with levy foam, with opioid tea, sentient dollar bills yelling to each other, pocket to pocket, cello stands in the precincts for accompanying counter-revolutionaries. My mother raised me with a simple pain. A poet loses his mind, you know, like the room has weather, or first girlfriend gravity. The difference between me and you is that the madness wants me forever, a pair of apartments defining both my family and political composure, books behind my back, bail money paved into the streets, playing euphoria, euphoria cliche. Bracing for the medicine's recoil, sharing a dirty deli sandwich with my friends, Black Jacobin's underground topography of a grandmother's hands. I mean, psychology of the mask now, teeth of the mask again. I go to the railroad tracks and follow them to the station of my enemies. A cobalt-toothed man pitches pennies at my mugshot negative. All over the United States, there are toddlers in the rock. I see why everyone out here got in the big cosmic basket and why blood agreements mean a lot and why I get shot back at. I understand the psycho-spiritual refusal to write white history and take the glass freeway. White skin tattooed on my right forearm, ricochet sewage near where I collapse into a rat-infested manhood. My new existence is living graffiti. In the kitchen with a lot of gun cylinders to hack up. House of God in part, no cops in part. My body brings down to Christmas. The new bullets pray over blankets made from the old bullets pray over the 28th hour's next beauty mark. Extrajudicial Confederate statue restoration. The waistband before the next protest poster. Hey, by the way, time is not an illusion, Your Honor. I will save your deaths for last. You are witty, Your Honor. You're moving money again, Your Honor. It's only raining one thing. Non-white cops and prison guard shadows reminding me of spoiled milk floating on an oil spill. The neighborhood making a lot of fuss over its demise. A new lake for a Black Panther party. Malcolm X's ballroom jacket slung over my son's shoulder. The figment of village, a new noose to a new white preacher, all in an abstract painting of a president. They bought slavery some time, didn't it? The tansy screeches of military boats and election Tuesday cars, a cold-blooded study in leg irons, proof that some white people have actually fondled nooses. That sundown couples made their vows of love over opaque peach plastic and boat action audiences. The Medgar Evers second is definitely my favorite law of science. Fondle news clippings and primitive Methodists, my arm changes imperialisms. Simple policing versus structural frenzies. Elementary school script versus even wider white spectrums, artless bleeding and the challenge of watching civilians think of terrible rituals they have around the corner. They let their elders beg for public mercy. I'm gonna go ahead and sharpen these kids' heads in the areas myself and see how much gravy spills out of family crest. Modern fans of war, with their t-shirt poems and t-shirt guilt and me having on the cheapest pair of shoes on the bus, I have no choice but to read the city walls for signs of my life. I talk facing away from the dead. They replace me with the change in my pocket. A penny that's yet to be invented. They say you have to know how to cut a throat on the way to cutting a throat. After sleeping on a mattress made from 2 garbage bags of clothes, I became content with the small gestures of plantation fires. Playing with couch ashes, I realized how weird the universe was. You know, it exists in so many places, so many random things. It interrupts me while I'm trying to dream. Like your clay correspondence, Lord. To be transparent, I have 20 books next to a bullet like an old man giving advice at the beginning of a revolution. Man, I've really done it, Lord. Explored the mumbles of my mind, explored what's naturally there, and I found no brainwashing. I found Africa, Lord. I have a future. It takes place in the diasporic South. I have morning possessions, modern militancy. I mean, windows to the South. I'll walk on a missile for food. I guess you will not want flowers for a few years, Lord. Will I be tied face to face with the country I murdered? Merged with us, Lord. Old metal versus new metal, or old metal versus a pool of meandering imperialist faces, you know, multiculturalism of sorts. And they replace me with a comedian's chest cavity instead of a chest cavity held tight. It takes a violent middleman for me to talk to myself, stories that travel through other people's stories, a song about a song, a hemisphere about a hemisphere, stories that travel through a conquered poet. My mother remembers Africa, Lord. She killed on behalf of you, Lord. I wore a machete all winter and no one asked me what it meant. I read 1,000 books in front of the world. You know, what I do is fight poems and sleep through decadent San Francisco prayer circles. Watch people play for post-working class associative surfaces, recreations of a governor's desk, ruling class art of utility, playing find a sociopathic bureaucrat, a day some white people scare even easier. TV in a basket next to a ceramic baby, wearing ceramic armor, musket prosody fantasizing through the art of the poor, their trendy latches locked before God, black art hunted down like a dog and hand over my friends, Lord. Lord, I think I'm gonna die in a war. Unelected white people in my small house, like a blues song with no spiritual effect, a dollhouse H-bomb, a pony show near dead bodies, apartheid weddings that go right, apartheid white people who give birth to mathematicians, the spiritual continuity of barracks and police stations, the chemical interpretation of a Sunday trip to church, church smells in their pockets, a river mistaken for a talking river, no autobiography outside of small personal victories of violence and drug use. Made in the image of God's trinkets, what white abolitionists confided in their children about. Chemical assurances that they will switch from black artists to white artists, black guy to white guy, black worker to white worker. I think about you cautiously, Lord. In the same way I think about my childhood, Lord. Fox Hope Friday nights, most of life is mute. A comedian points out a planter's field to a priest. King Sugar Cane, King Cotton, King Revolutionary. You know the Bible is central, containing all modes of shallow introduction, introducing an unlisted planter class, speaking about fevers and balance sheets and reassuring the masses that we can figure out our fathers later. A priest took my mother lightly, Lord. Stood in front of parishioners, re-raveling fantasies about black art. Priest reading confidently before I broke him and broke his parallel. And after the day, I've never been a poet before. A little brother watches his big brother's friends. They leave rifles on shelter walls. They agree with me and call it literature. It's a simple matter, this revolution thing. To really lie to no one. To keep nothing godlike. To write a poem for God. Thank you.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. I was just so drawn to every word, and I was excited to hear what you had to say next. That was powerful stuff. Thank you very much. You can find more of Tongo's writing in our book. Another fantastic poem, working with form and sound, words, right here in Writing for Life.
So thank you, Tongo. Also, thank you everybody for joining us. We're gonna have our Q&A now, so get your backgrounds ready or whatever, to stop talking to your people or no texting, and because now everybody's gonna be able to see you. We're all here at the same time now. It's not just me or just anybody else. And I think I'll open up the first question, not to Kenya or Dwayne, because I'm gonna save that one until you don't think it's gonna happen anymore, and then I'm gonna throw it at you. So this is our last event up in the Bay, and unfortunately, we were going to be there. We would have all been able to hang out and see each other. And I think the next time we do see each other, it'll be even more special, because we'll know not only the importance of being with each other, but now we know the importance of how it feels to be apart. And that's something I'm going to carry with and remember. But I wanted to ask everyone, as this is not the last event of our virtual tour, but the last event of our community-themed Bay Area extravaganza, if I'm allowed to say that, if I can call it that. I'm going to anyway. How do you all feel about community as it relates to a specific place? As Micah said, where we take our home with us, as some of you spoke about, loneliness and numbness, and even the sci-fi world and dance and art and how everything is connected. We have this connectedness and this connection with everything and with everyone, good and bad. And so navigating, I think, the shitty parts, if there isn't a better word, I think that's a pretty solid word for a lot of things, and finding the beauty of it, finding the positive. There's this video clip, it's a GIF or a GIF, I don't want to get yelled at by internet people. It's a foot. If you imagine just a foot in a flip flop, and all the toes are curled in, but the middle finger just goes like, boop. And it's hilarious. And it's the most simplest thing, but I watch it cheers me up. And I don't know where to find it. If you just type in, flip flop, flip off foot or something, you'll see it. But I bring that up because those little things are what are important to me. And they're what keep me going. And all of us, if we've met or if we're new to each other, depending on if we've met because of the book, or you're a guest speaker here, or we've met in different journeys of our lives, all of us have a moment like that with each other. And that translates to everybody else, because I'll tell my friends, oh yeah, my friend from Oakland did this. And I won't name you, but it became my story. And I think all of our stories become each other's stories. And so I want to hear your thoughts on kind of that theme, as this is our final event of the community themed in the Bay Area end of location and place. And so anybody can jump in. We're all unmuted. We're gonna, talk over each other and under people, but that's what makes it fun. And so whoever wants to start, I'm excited to hear it. I think other people will be too.
So it's funny because I actually like moved to the Bay Area to like find a community that I felt like was like going to be able to just kind of hold me and just like, support me as an artist as I support them as artists as well. And back at home, I knew different artists. I was around for that, but I was really considering myself this kind of artist for the first time. And so I can't, like, so many stories in the Bay since I've moved here about some of the people here on the panel, but how we're just like cool with each other, just how that relationship has really affected me in ways that past relationships just haven't done as much. So, I mean, I love the community here in the Bay, and I love how it extends as we go and come back and go and come back.
Definitely. And I want to add to Dwayne. There are different types of relationships, and I think a lot of the friendships and whatever ships that I've made ships, because everything that we're all together, we're not just friends, we're more than that. We're together as people, and I'm your people, you're my people, and that whole thing. But I'm really grateful for the opportunity to still communicate all the time, and to kind of, the Bay was somewhere where I could wash away whatever identity I thought I had here, or I thought that I had to be because of our cultures or our society, pressures from society. And even though I still carry that, I have friends who I met up there, and, the bar owners and whoever else, that I'll say something and they're like, what, get out of here. They see right through it and they call me out. And then the real conversation begins, and then the growth happens, or we just, we just fight and fight and fight and fight and fight, and nothing ever happens. But we know that it's there, and we can see through it. And I know that, we all have that stuff, and it's super cool, and it's great. And, as we move forward with our other events and with more projects, I'm glad that it started off this way. And it started off, in a way that pushes me to be better, as in my capacity here at Nervous Ghost Press, as a publisher, as a host. I don't like being a host, but it's making me, it's pushing me to do it. And I'm glad that you're out here with me. And so I'm excited to hear more. And Michael can help me jump in and, field some questions or think of questions, and, just all work together. So yeah, I'm gonna shut up for a bit.
I wanted to talk a little more about community. Or at least the last one that I was on, 2 episodes ago, I guess, we had talked about location and being in the Bay Area, having this homecoming. We are, referencing home, we're referencing community, location, locale, region, regionalism, the reasons why we write and why we are inspired by the environment that we are in at that moment. And it always gets brought up about the actual physical distance, if that matters, or the physical locality. But I wanted to talk about community, like a community of writers and that fellowship. We're all separated. And we're in different places. We're all over the United States, but this is what's bringing us together. It's our common interest and our common goal. And I think that is the more profound experience, is having a community without actually being in the same location as your other brothers and sisters. It's a stronger connection. If I think of community as a positive word, But communities can be frustrating and they can be challenging, but there's also so much love in them. I think that working towards that, working through your challenges and through your frustrations is important, especially for people who share common interests. Growth is what we all seek. Growth in our career, creative growth, growth in our relationships, and being able to separate yourself from the locality or like a restraint, something as restrictive as physical location, and saying that you can have this connection to another person who you might not have ever met. Because a lot of these people, a lot of our contributors and our guest speakers, I've never met them in person. And unless we have an event where everybody can meet in the same space at the same time, I'm never going to meet them in person, probably. All the wonderful people we've had, Buddy, Tongo, I might not meet them, but being able to have this right now and have this connection over the screen is enough for me, enough to say that I have a community here.
%. I'm gonna do this, watch. I don't know if that shows on
Little
YouTube, but
clap.
that's a little.
Like the clap.
I wish I had more. I think I only have 2. I have a thumbs up and I have that one, but I wanted to switch it up. And of course, if anybody has other ideas and questions, or you think of an answer, just say it. We don't have to go in any kind of order here, but for now, I'm going to ask Dwayne first. As you're writing about sci-fi, fantasy, and not necessarily poems, but I'm sure there's a lot of poetry in your writing. But how do you deal with, so if I'm feeling some kind of heavy emotion, I'll just write a poem, or I'll get angry and I'll do something dumb, or just sit with it and let it marinate until it becomes a poem or it becomes something. But I know that I have an outlet in a specific form or a specific genre, and I know that when I try to write stories, they end up just being long poems. And so it's harder for me if someone said, hey, write a story and kind of get that same energy or emotion into it. I'm not sure. It's much more difficult. And so as a story writer, how do you get that emotion in there? Because I know a lot of us as poets or as dancers dance, obviously it's physical, and you exercise, you can feel it. But how does can writing a poem make you sweaty and exhausted? I don't know. But I'd like to hear your perspective, and then Kenya, of course, and then open it up to anybody else who also dances or does other things on the side. Poetry is my go-to, but sometimes I'll paint here and there. And so, I'd like to start with you, Dwayne, and then move on.
Yeah, I'd love to give you my take on that. So it's, for me, like when I'm feeling like a story is on the tip of my tongue, it's usually because I either like remember something, like it's early or in the morning, and like, my mind is just like really busy, and I might remember something that happened to me as a child, or I might remember a social interaction, and I'm thinking about, or in conversation with some of the authors that I'm reading. I quite often think like, okay, how can I make this emotion that I'm feeling tangible? Like what would be the device, or what would be the character, or what would be the fantastical or science fictional aspect in the story that kind of really speaks to whatever I'm kind of feeling at the moment. And so I just have this story right now that had just been accepted for publication, called Live and Flame, and it's very much so just about an anger, and that anger kind of expressing itself as fire, and what that fire really does. You know, it's hot. It makes the house too hot. It burns the metal and it burns the wood when you open a door, and you know, it litters the air with smoke. And you know, how does that literally affect the characters around them? And what does that mean for his own or their own flame? And so that's, I think that's a lot of what I start to think about, is how to kind of make that emotion that I'm feeling just as visceral as possible.
Great answer. You know, the part I wrote down, I wrote it in the chat, and we have a question in the chat. I'll get to it in a bit after a little bit more, but anger is fire. You know, I know that when I'm angry or you know, you get all hot, you get warm, and sometimes it sucks, and sometimes you'll know if something's going on and your blood gets a little warmer, or you get those tingles or somewhere, and you're like, all right, hey, hold up. You know, something's happening here, and my body knows it before my brain does. And so I don't know, I like that. That was really, I'm gonna text you and email you so we can discuss more. Because you know, I'll pick your brain, I'll pick everybody's brain. But Kenya, you know, as a dancer, how do you deal with all of that emotion and everything else, especially now?
Well, movement and physicality in general is a pretty cathartic, you know, release of those hormones that are happening, that are involved with emotion. So right now, you know, being stuck at home, there's a program going on, Dancing Alone Together, and they've actually put out people from all over the world. All types of different dance companies are putting out classes. So there have been classes I've been able to take that I would have never been able to take before, and it's donation based. But other than that, when I'm creating, it's definitely an emotional process, especially if it's something that, you know, is personal to me, as opposed to just kind of like a commentary on society. If it's something that's personal to me, the process in itself, just coming up with movement, starts improvisational. And so I don't know if you can kind of mirror this with writing, if you just like let the pencil go with whatever words come to your mind, kind of like that, but with my body. And if the emotion is sadness, I find that the movement might be slower and heavier. If the emotion is anger, the movement is, you know, faster and more direct. So it's interesting too to try to take choreography that's already created and then try to flip the emotion on it. So if I've created choreography about it in a time in my life where I was feeling morbid or something, and then try to change the song that I choreographed to, or change the music, change the tempo, just shift something slightly, and then just try to play with my own brain to try to see if that changes my mood, or how it changes the way the choreography is seen from an audience. But yeah, really, it's just the physicality and there's all kinds of science behind why physicality in general is cathartic. You don't have to be a professional dancer to just move your body when you're feeling any type of emotion.
Totally. And you know, and this is, you know, everybody can, because I'm sure you all have a similar, how, you know, if you move quicker, maybe you're angrier, or when you're sad, you're slower, as you said. And I've noticed sometimes in writing, when the lines are getting longer, you know, so you read a little bit slower as opposed to short lines and line spaces and edits like that. And as far as my writing is, I'll just dump out all the words on a paper and then go in and mold it. But I want to hear from the other ones who, you know, if you're angry, Dwayne, do you write a angry dialogue? You know, is the setting darker? Is it like a volcano as opposed to a, you know, a beach or something like that? And for the other ones, to build off of Kenya's response, you know, do you see your writing change as your emotions change? Or can you feel an emotion and then get into some kind of mindset and control it? You know, does your hand or your fingers, if you type, or on your phone, your thumbs, or, you know, some people, sometimes I type on with my index fingers on my phone, do they just go crazy? And you don't even know what words, you're not planning it, you're not manufacturing it, it's kind of controlling you. And So I'd like to hear from whoever and all ever, that's all of you, make up words. But no, yeah, I think, I'm learning and I think it's really fun. So anybody can jump in and then I'll bring up the question from YouTube.
Well, there's a couple, ways to handle or dance with the various, emotions that run through you. One, I found an interesting exercise is to let the different emotions or really sensations generate different voices, so that different moods will induce different voices that don't necessarily even have to aren't necessarily exactly. So for example, if I find myself in a kind of an angry or grumpy mood, like an older voice will come out. If I'm relatively smooth, a kind of more academic voice. So the trick is just to kind of use your internal weather patterns to induce different kind of narrators, and then those narrators actually get more self-aware over time, where they can be naturally just preoccupied with a certain thing or a certain place or a certain person, but then you can start to direct them at different subjects. But there's also a train of thought that exists beyond the emotion you perceive. If you keep your mind on, again, just second for second, taking stock of the sensations in your body, there's a little voice behind there that will really come up with some pretty, it has some interesting things to say. That isn't necessarily beholden to, processes like getting things off your chest. It's there's a slick little voice there. But it happens when you really really settle in, present, like second, this second, this second, this second, exactly what I'm sensing. It's an interesting little almost byproduct of staying of actually avoiding the usual storylines that you sell yourself.
Dude, slick little voice. That was yeah, that's pretty cool. I always call it the dumb little voice, but I like slick better. Makes it sound a little cooler. Michael, you have anything as a screenwriter?
Yeah, well, not necessarily as a screenwriter. I'll talk about that a little later, but what Tonga was talking about and what kind of what was referenced earlier by Dwayne is emotion and truth. And when I hear those words, I immediately put them together and I think of emotional truth. And I think that's our gut feeling as a writer, is whether or not we are actually feeling an emotion or we are writing to feel an emotion, we somehow get to that emotional truth and we work through it. And I have a quote from, I don't know who it was, but I had to go look for it in my laptop that I have written down a whole section of quotes. Maybe somebody here knows who it's by, but it's fiction is for getting at the truth when the truth isn't sufficient enough for the truth. And I'll extend that to poetry too. Poetry and fiction, I think the great irony in it is, even if it is purely fictional, if it is coming from someplace like imagination, there is more valid truth in that and more resonating emotion than there might be in an actual memoir. And when I remember when I took a memoir writing class, they talked a lot about the emotional truth and what we get at, and how an emotional truth is that gut feeling that arises during any situation, whether or not you're considering the facts. It is your instinct. And I think that is what that is what at least I'm getting at when I write and when I try to convey emotion. It's pure instinct. It's primal. And kind of like with writing for life, it is is a survival tactic. And so that is, I think that's why I'm drawn to narrative and fiction, is the amount of emotion that you can convey without even saying a single word about emotion, all through image, all through text, and dialogue. And for me, that's, for my narrative background, that's what I like to use. It's the same thing in screenwriting. You know, screenwriting is, for those of us who do have good vision, and we've been watching movies all of our life, I feel like it is a little more instinctual because it's a visual experience. It's a sensual experience. When you're reading, you have all these other things going on in your head. You have all these other distractions that might be happening. I've picked up, you know, chapter books and texts, and I might be reading an entire page, and then I just realized that, hey, I've only understood, or I only actually comprehended one sentence, because as I was reading, I started thinking about my own life and what it brought in, and all the emotions I had from what the writer had. But with a film and with screenwriting, you have to think as a visual, like you have to think in visions and in images, and you're, at that point, you're a visual creator. But you can still convey that through sound and through something as simple as, you know, someone's stare, someone's glance. You could have a close up on somebody's eyes like they did in old spaghetti Western films. And there's so much emotion there. And you as the viewer can feel that, you know, it seeps out from the screen and hits you, which is something that doesn't always happen in text. But that's why I like film as a medium too, is because you get that extra layer that you wouldn't get.
Nice. I like that. You know, when truth, that quote, you know, it reminded me of a show. I think it was Drake and Josh when they called him a liar and he called him a truther. You know, when truth isn't truth enough for the truth. I don't know. That's really cool. But so I'm gonna end with our last question here, and for someone who hasn't spoken yet, or anyone really that wants to jump in, Micah, I know your video's off. If you're still around, you know, as someone in Japan or lived in Japan for a while, maybe this resonates differently with you. But our question from YouTube, and you know, before that, they said, you know, Dwayne is such a cutie, and so, you know, maybe Dwayne, you want to go first. But the question is, how has the pandemic impacted everybody's writing practices? And then to go on is, have your motivations changed? You know, maybe before you were doing you know, I know a lot of us or some of my friends will do a poem a day at a certain time, or at least try and get something written down every single day. And has the world changed, the way that it's changed, has it changed you, not only as a person at home or at work or in society or whatever, but as an artist, as a writer? And so whoever wants to go first, Dwayne, you can go first because they named you. I thought that was pretty cool. But, you know, I'm excited. Anybody has anything about that?
Yeah, I'd love to speak on this a little bit. I think one of the really cool things about being a sci-fi fantasy writer is that you have a chance to anticipate the future. And some of that is based off of your own imagining. Some of it is based off of your own inclinations towards whatever type of fantasy you like the most. I wrote this short story a little bit ago called, during the quarantine, called MRM. And it stands for mood ring moderators. And so in the story, you put them on, and it's supposed to make like the emotional aspect of having whatever pandemic this was, they were dealing with, easier, so that you didn't have to kind of deal with that really hard not being with people that you love, and you know, sometimes having to bunker down with people that are not healthy for you, and you feel like as though, you know, you need a new space, but you just can't kind of get to that because of the quarantine, you know. So I think it's a really fun way to kind of imagine a future where different things are happening, and you can kind of ponder like what that looks like, and in a way maybe even blueprint something that actually happens, or something that actually may happen. So yeah, quarantine has just, I try to, before quarantine, I used to read and write every weekend. But now that I spend a lot more time at home, I kind of have opened it up. So whenever during the day that feels right for me to write or read, I just start to do it. And so it's kind of opened up my process in a way that before it was just probably not going to get there.
Yeah, I feel that. I know that maybe it's not necessarily due to what's going on, but my writing has kind of taken a back seat to whatever took the driver's seat. I'm not even sure what that was either. But it's this whole thing. It has kind of, from, I want to say, giving me a perspective of the importance of it, of writing and of expressing ourselves in not only when we would go somewhere to do it, but can we do it at home? Or where, sometimes we'll go somewhere to read or to write or to express and share and perform that isn't where we go to sleep or where we have meals or, whatever it is. But now many of us are doing all of those things in the same place. And so it's interesting to see how I'm viewing it, if I'm reacting to it, if I can acknowledge it in that moment or wake up the next day and say, oh man, yesterday sucked, or whatever it is. But yeah, has anybody else noticed your creativity has either gotten sharper during these times, or that maybe it's gotten a little bit slower, or have you been just, wherever your emotional or your sensational, aspects that Tango said, has it affected your creativity, your writing, your dance and everything else?
It's done both for me, actually. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, all my video is shut off, so I don't know what's going on, but yeah, it's done both. And I like the word that's being thrown around that I think Pete used on the last episode. It was pandemic project. And for me, my pandemic project was writing 3 screenplays in 3 months. And this is the final month, but I'm only 2.5 screenplays in. So it's really go time for me. It's crunch time. But I did do 3 outlines, so I'm satisfied with that if that's how it ends up with. And there are, I think because we were hit with like a 1-2 punch so quickly, it began with COVID, and then it went into, us and millions of other viewers watching a video of a man being killed by authorities. And those 2 incidents are profoundly different from each other, but they both resulted in a very tragic end and finish. And being a writer, being a creative, and it's such an emotional person, it's hard to just let that go or not think about it or have that seep into your writing somehow and inspire you. And yeah, my creativity has been inspired, but then something like that could happen and I might end up watching 10 or so YouTube videos of the same thing. And while the creativity is there and the inspiration is there, my anger and my emotion is forefront, and that itself kind of prevents me from being as productive as I want to.
Definitely. And so I'm going to, I want to thank everybody again for being with us, for those of you who are watching at home, who will watch later on, and of course those who have commented, I get emails and texts all the time. It's really nice to see the support from the community, from our friends and family and everybody else. And if you are interested in joining us in a future date, www.nervousghostpress.com, ghosts@nervousghostpress.com. Let us know, and we would love to have you. I don't care where you're from, who you are, how old you are, how not old you are, and you're all welcome. Everybody's welcome. Remember to stay tuned and stay connected on all of our social media pages, all of our media pages, really everything: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, our website. And I'd like to shout out again and thank you to Stephanie Sullivan from Brix 581. Remember to email and to contact when they get their donations set up, and any way that you can support and help them at stephaniesullivan@gmail.com. That is Sullivan with 1 L. And we'll see you next week. Not next week, sorry. Our next event is August 28th. That is our final event of August. And then we have a few in September where we travel to the northern states and to Ohio. So we're excited about getting into different parts of the country. On the 28th, we are headed back down to Los Angeles, California, where we will be hosted by Skylight Books. And very excited about Skylight. They are a staple in LA. It's somewhere that we love to go to. We read. I think they are open too, so we'll give out more information as we get closer. And I would like to again thank you to all of our guest speakers, all of our contributors, everyone who comes out. So if you are a dancer or a musician or a potter or a builder or whatever, we want you here. We want you to tell us about how your life is impacted by your creativity and your art and your skills and everything else that you may have to share, or maybe you don't want to share, but we'll make you share anyways. And so again, thank you for joining us online, and we look forward to seeing you next time.